Rotterdam, okay? And the last field, which is here, is this one here, which is this coordinates, all right? Now, I also did that here. So you see how this has got this name?
Yeah.
It's just like, and this name, to me, it looks identical, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if I go into this one, and I've done the same thing, and now see how this, this one, its last thing was coordinates, right? 4 and 52. And if I go into here, I've got 4 and 52. And then I know this is the most recently updated, because then this has got all my terminals in it, right?
Yep.
So for me, this one is the source of truth for the port.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right.
John.
You
Yeah, got it.
right? Because, and I don't know what this must be an earlier version, right?
Yep.
Because, sorry, this must be an earlier version because it clearly differs. It doesn't have these additional fields which this one has, right?
मैं पूरा लॉगिन हो जाऊं 10 मिनट के
That
लिए
comes,
कोई दिक्कत
see
नहीं
how we've
गुस्सा
got
नहीं
this
होगे
one, we've got
21 कर दो
terminals
गुस्सा नहीं
here
होगे
because
तो
we've added all our terminals in, and this one here doesn't have it, right?
Okay, got it.
Yeah, all right. So we get to here. Now, this is what I wanted to show you, is that I want you to think of it as, and there's another thing too. And so if we're saying this is, let's say this is going to be the source of truth for our ports, and I know this will be right because I think there's 7,645
Yep.
files in here, and that's consistent with the amount of, and that refers to this here, to this document ID, right? Yeah.
Yep.
That's what it is. So each page is a document, is that right? And each document has an ID. And this document here is called Rotterdam. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so from, you know how I said that this we had a legacy port database, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've come and we've added our fields to it. So I've been looking at this and I can see how this is all constructed, and I understand objects and arrays and features and stuff like that. And so I was looking at this, and there's two things I would say. I would say, firstly as well, one, I don't think there's any need to have a country ID.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's pointless. I can't see the need for it.
I mean, maybe it's used for distinguishing. Sometimes.
Because, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like sometimes maybe port names or like can be same. So that's why country is coming to distinguish.
So, right. So, yeah, so what I wanted to say about that is that this is their legacy system, right? And this legacy system goes all the way up to this feature collection, right?
Yeah.
That's the old system.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And everything, and that all relates to them. And then this here, this actually should be an object here, right?
Yeah.
Which is all this, which is all this stuff, which should be the IHS port.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
This all relates to the port. And then we've got here, which is terminals.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Didi, 1 second.
And then inside the terminals, we have these. We've got the terminal, and then inside the terminal,
yep,
we've got berths, right? So berths, their center point should be inside the terminal, and the terminal center point is going to be inside the port. The port's the upper level, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea when we constructed this is that this is the old system, right?
Yeah.
And then we have then put this, everything from here downwards, right, is all our information, okay?
Okay.
And so what we do is our entire UI points to all this information, should only point to this information here. We don't output any of this information here at all.
That's a legacy
right?
one, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And so we're saying, we don't trust your information. You have your name and we have our name. And in fact, okay, right, your name's Rotterdam, and we also call it Rotterdam, but we classify it a little bit differently and stuff like this, right? And so this is just like these things here, I can see these are just like properties of the port, right? Aren't they? They're like properties. And in fact, this is what these are as well. These are all properties, right?
Yeah.
Of this port. Now, where this has come into, so in this, if we're saying this is the source of truth for all of our ports, right? Okay, so I would say, all right, bang, all I need to do is I just need to make that into an object. But what I would do is that, let me just think about this for a moment. So remember how I had, so this is it here. This is the same. So let me have a look here. So this is Rotterdam, right? This is Rotterdam, okay?
Yep.
Now we've come down here.
Yours. How much percentage?
And what this is here, this actually here, this should be called location ID.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So what we do, this is an object ID, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And we actually don't need a country ID. I don't think we need that.
Okay.
But this is the ID for our port, right? For all of our locations, right? Is we should call this location ID, right? And that would be its location ID. Now, this is the port. And if I went down in here into the terminal, this is also an ID. This is PO. See, like this. This is the port. This is the location ID of the port, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
And then here, and then that location ID of the port is contained in all of our locations within this port, right? So everything that's a terminal will go PO3161 and then terminal name. Everything that is a berth is PO3161 terminal name and then the berth name, Euromax berth, right? And so so these are key IDs, is what I'm saying to you.
Okay.
And we're not labelled as this is an object, right? This needs to be an object.
Yes,
okay?
I got it.
And if I relabeled this, right? This location ID is called a world port. It's a world port number, but for consistency, every location has a location ID. So if I relabeled it as location ID, all our ports have a location ID that starts with PO and then it's got a 4-digit number, basically, right? So if we called that, so that's a location ID and that's a location ID, right?
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
And that one's a location ID, all right?
Yeah.
And so at the moment we have, and this is the only information that we output, right?
Yeah, only on front end, yes.
Yeah, and so you think, all right, this is the location ID, and then this is the parent location of the location ID, and this is the location type of the location ID, and this is the name of the location ID, and this is the, you know what I mean? So all of this information relates to this, right?
Okay. Yeah, I totally understand. Like
that's my ID number.
Yep.
That's my ID, because we have all these. So which is this thing here?
Yep.
Which is this port database, which is this where we go. If I relabeled that location ID, and then these are all the fields that are connected to that location ID, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I totally understand now. So basically, this like the WPVN is the main ID for a port. I understand now.
Yeah, and so and because we're talking about in Mongo in constructing stuff, and we're saying if this is our explaining to you that this is everything, And so this is what's going to be crazy for you, right? Is that this port here, Rotterdam, is a huge port, right? Now, what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you this. Now, this feature collection, all right, this is the existing one, right? And this is what they've got, okay?
Okay.
Right? You know, and so we have all these, right? And these are all the center points,
Yeah.
right, for this polygon. And this is now have a polygon ID,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
They all relate to that, right? So that's the port polygon, right? And then they have these other ones. This is one of the biggest ports in the world, okay?
Okay.
And so you can think that there's like, what is that? 85 fields. Is it 85 points? It could be. It might be.
Yeah, 85.
I think 85 points that make up the polygons. It's possible. So I wanted you to understand the structure of this, of how our port's constructed.
Sure.
And they've got that, right? And in respect to the country ID, I don't think the ID is necessarily, I don't know if it's in the way or not, you know what I mean? But I don't see a great point of it. But of course, because you can see here, if you look at the way that we separate things, I've got the ID, right?
Yep.
And now I've got a name for it, and then I've got a state, and then I've got a province, and then I've got a country, and then I've got a alpha code, right? So these are all like properties, is that right? Properties or of that, right? So this was the legacy, and this is what we have, and this is what, and everything here, this is what we show in our UI. We output to the UI only fields from here, right? We don't do anything else from here. Like none of this stuff, right? It's like they have a UN loco, and we use this one here. We use this one, verified, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is like the vessels. There's unverified and there's validated, right? You know, and this is we did the same thing here. So we come on to this legacy system here. This is all just little bits and pieces. It's just, this is just stuff. But what they've got in here is they've got all these polygons, right? Okay, from these previous ones. And if you remember, so what happens? And so all that is all linked. So all those points, they're all linked to this ID, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And down here, right? And so here we've got to add, so if you look into here, like if I looked into here, you know, here, so this ID, my terminal. So see how I've got my terminal center point? See how it's missing?
Yeah, I can see.
Right? Okay. And then also my birth center point's missing as well. Right?
Yeah.
So in other words, I know that in this port here, right?
Yeah.
In this port here, which I call Rotterdam, and we label it like this, and it's in this country, and it's got all this sort of information and blah, 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 and the names of the terminals and stuff. So I know the names of all the terminals, and I named all the berths and stuff, but I don't have an actual center point, a longitude and latitude for that location. I don't know. I know it's in the port. I just don't know where. Right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to identify that berth, you know how we spoke the other day, and I said to you, what we'll do is we'll run a query against the ship type, and we'll check all ships stopped for 12 hours, and then we do that one time, and we'll determine all the different berths, right? We're in our port or our anchorages or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we can use that AIS information to do that, to get the center point, right?
Got it.
And we have to do that one time at the very beginning when you're creating the port database, okay?
Yep.
And we've created this from scratch, and because these guys have got this, but we've had a look at it and we don't trust anything about it. And so we've had to go ahead and we've had to create all our own stuff there. And so what will happen is that, for instance, if this terminal here, right?
Yeah.
So everything gets a center point, and then on top of it, it's going to get a polygon ID.
Okay, got it.
I mean, it's going to get this. So imagine that it's got a center point, and then we would go, I don't know, what is this? What is this in here? So this is a terminal, right?
Yeah.
And this is the geometry for this. Let's have a look, whatever. So what I'm trying to show is that we have, we've got this legacy system there. We've got this new information here. This is what we make as an object. This is all that we output. We still got to add center points to our terminal and to our burst. These are actual IDs that this is. And so some of my concerns here is I just want to close all this stuff up. This is all just, I'm going a little bit off track on this. Hide. Sorry. But, we're talking about lots of polygons and everything and whatever it might be. And so here,
Yep.
this terminal here, he needs a center point, and he's also going to have a polygon attached to this terminal.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
And what we're going to do is the idea is that we will take so what I'm doing individually over here, I'm doing a match between terminals, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Between this is another one. This is Spire and this is us. So we've actually got three systems here. So what's going to happen? What I'm going to show you. This is. Sorry, I should have said this. So we've got one. How can I make all this disappear? No. Right. So think of the old system, right, which is theirs, yeah, and then there's ours, okay, and then on top of that we've got a third system, which is Spire's system, right?
Yeah.
So these guys here, where is it? So see this, right? These guys here, Spire that we looked at, yeah. Now we're going to pay a subscription to these guys, okay?
Okay.
And that means we can use every single API in here, whatever they have developed, okay?
Okay.
All right. And they also have in here, which is a little thing here, which is a little GraphQL where you can test all sorts of queries and stuff if you wanted to do that, right? It's available, right? And they have different kinds of APIs and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of their information, again, we don't trust, right? So we can always go back and so what the idea is that we've got that, right? Which is we've got our port database here, which is this legacy system. And then we've got this as well. And then these guys here, which is this, they also have a set of locations, and their locations looks like where is it? It's here, right? So Spire, right? These guys, Spire, which is this
Yeah.
API, they also work with location IDs, and these guys have 11,350 location IDs, right?
Okay.
And they work with location ID and location type, just like we do. So we've actually got a system here where in our port database, this is an old system. We refer to this as SN,
Yeah.
right? This system,
Okay.
okay? And then this one here is all IHS information, okay?
Got it.
And we're saying that this is true. This is the truth, right? This is the real name. This is the real locations. This is where we've done all our verifying of all kinds of stuff. And then we have the third one here, which is these guys here, which is these providers, which is our provider who we take all our information. which is all there, and all they do is they give this UN locode, a country, a name, and a location type and a center point, right? A longitude. That's it, okay? And why their whole system is really confusing is because you could go and you can go, let me just have a think about it for a moment. And if I'm just going to go AUGLT, right?
Okay.
So this is our provider system. This is why it's so mental, all right? So this is how they break it up into their locations, right? They go anchorage and terminals and gas terminals. Now they've got 2 locations called port, right?
Yeah.
With two different longitude and latitudes, with 2 different unique IDs with the same name.
Yeah.
Right?
I can see.
And so you can imagine if there's a port and we call it the port of Mumbai, right?
Yeah.
It's 2 locations being called port with the name Mumbai on it. And so it's like which location is the port and what is that other location with the same name?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's mental, and they have this throughout their whole system. Okay.
Yeah.
Where this is a port, but actually this other one here, I'll tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be a terminal.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a liquid bulk terminal, because I know that's the way that they are do it. And so these guys, they group things by this code here, right? Which is just this UN low code. They don't have a and what they are, these guys are guys who build satellites, and they group location IDs under a port based on the distance it is within the port, not necessarily a name. So this actually could be part of another port or something,
Okay.
right? So their whole classification has been a nightmare, okay?
Yeah.
And so that is what I've done, is the final thing after sorting all this stuff out here in Mongo and getting all this everything, the final file is this file here, which I have to finish off, which is where these guys, this is these spires, and this is against our IHS thing.
Yeah.
And so where they're calling it a port, and I'm calling it actually a subport area and stuff, right? And this is my final match across the system, okay?
Yes.
And then what will happen, so this is going to be our port database. It's going to have all this. It's going to have our legacy at the top here.
Yep.
It's going to have another object here, which is ours, which we which we output. And then at the bottom of this, we're going to have another object, which is going to be the spy information, right?
Yeah.
Okay, which also goes alongside that. And when I talk about that, I'm going to say there'll be spire information that relates to the port, and then here, this is going to be the R. This is like our terminal ID and our terminal name and our terminal center point and all that kind of stuff. And then it's going to have Spire terminal name and Spire ID and Spire center point and Spire whatever it is, right? And what that is, that allows us to map these locations, right? This provider's locations, this location ID and these center points, right, into our port database here. Okay, you following me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what happens, we've got these historical port events, these from Spire, right? These historical, yeah? And we've got 98 million records, right, attached to these location IDs here.
Yep.
Over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
From this guy, right? So we've got 2 years of all historical port events, right?
Got it.
That took place in this location here, which has this center point. Okay, right? Yeah. And so what that does, and so what we're doing now, which is this final match here, which is here, is that I'm going to be adding these 5 fields, this Spire, our providers' locations, right, into also adding that into here, underneath here as another object, right,
Okay.
So we have alignment of all the location IDs of our provider, right?
Yeah.
Which is this, all of this, which comes from here,
Yeah.
with our own port database,
Yep.
which we see, which we view in the UI, right?
Yeah.
Which we view up here, Rotterdam, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so all this information, this is all the IHS information, this stuff, right? That's all that is showing here. That is showing, if we had a look at where is the, here. So this here, subport areas, right?
Yeah.
These are all the subport areas. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Now, this is where it's going to get crazy for you. So we've got this, all right? Now, this port here,
Yeah.
this is not because it's a main port, but this one. So I said this is the location ID,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Another way to relabel this one is that this is a referenced,
Yep.
a reference location ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when we look at our port database, right?
Yeah.
This one here, which is this is Rotterdam. Okay.
Okay.
And in this, you're going to have to understand as well. So this Rotterdam, it's a main port. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Parent location is a port.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Location is a port. Its location type, it's a main port.
Yeah.
These other location types are subport areas. This one is that location type's an alternative name. Okay. All right.
Got it.
And you will see. So within our Mongo, right?
Yeah.
We also have other location IDs, other world port numbers, these ones, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 documents, all pointing to this one number here, 3161.
Okay. Got
Okay.
it. Yeah. I
All
get
right.
it. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to give you a copy of this, right? This is how our port system works.
Yeah.
That there's a separate document for each location ID, and that location ID, this document, this might be the only information. It might say port, subport area, Pernis. All this stuff is consistent. It's the same. It's all the same as what the main port is. It's all consistent across it. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And there's actually a difference here, which is this verified UN low code. So any of these UN low codes mean, so essentially what we're saying is that imagine this is one big massive. So if we went to Rotterdam, I'm just going to have a quick Rotterdam. I'm going to show you this.
Take your time. No worries.
So you can see, like if you went for, this is just another providers. So if we had a look at that, so I'm going to go Rotterdam. Let's get into maps. I'm just going to quick, come on. Right. So, all right. So, okay, so here, this is my Google Maps in here. Now, see how this has got the Port of Rotterdam, all right, just in here, Port of Rotterdam, okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, and then here, these are like some terminals and stuff, right, inside this port. So you can imagine what the boundary for this port might be. It might go all the way like this.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
All right. And every single location inside the port has to be inside this outer boundary. Okay.
Yeah.
So every time a ship enters, it enters the port polygon. Okay.
Okay.
The port polygon is the outer boundary. and that is what triggers a port event occurring. And then as the ship comes through the outer boundary over here, it comes in, and then he comes in along here.
Yeah.
He comes along in here, and then he comes along, and then he comes and parks over here, right?
Yeah.
And then if there was a terminal, then we would draw a terminal polygon, which might cover this little area here. And we would do another one, which is going to be like this, which is, you can see. So where these guys, see how people like this, see how he does that? It's a jetty, right?
Yeah.
Or a berth, okay? And it's just, so you have like, imagine that as they're calling it a berth, but call it a terminal, a berth, whatever you want to do it, right? But that it's just your polygon, right? And so what would happen is that your port polygon might be out here somewhere. I can't see where his port polygon is, to be honest. I'm going to try another one, which might be, no, it's good to stick with Rotterdam. So the point is that you would have your port polygon, which might be the outer boundary, and then inside it you've got all these terminals and berths, right? The terminals being these, right? You know what I mean? And then inside the terminals, we've got these things which are called berths, right? Okay, which is like, it's just like it is the hierarchy of the ports, okay? But anyway, so
I can.
what I wanted to,
Yeah, I can understand the flow.
I'm trying to finish that off. So just to come back to it, right? So what happens here is that, so if we went to here, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you go and do this, any of us, so this subport area, it's called Ridderkerk, for instance, right? And if I go up here and I go Ridderkerk, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Bang, brings me into Rotterdam.
Okay.
Okay? Because, which is exactly what it's meant to do, because these are all subport areas. All these subport areas are all inside this one, which is the mother polygon, right? That's the mother polygon. And all these are either a center point or an individual polygon inside this big polygon, right? So if you imagine, can you follow that or not?
No, I am able to follow it. Yeah, it's actually.
Yeah? So if you think of, I'm gonna, what is hard to do is going to be, no. Let's have a look, see if I can find something else for you, a visual. No. Yeah, that could be one. Try and get the.
क्या हुआ बताओ? हुआ क्या था? हुआ क्या था? म्यूट कर लिया. कॉल किया था किसने?
No, I don't know if it's this file. Oh, here we go. So what I want you to imagine is this, right? Imagine this is a port, okay? And the port, and the vessel leaves the port, and then he trots across the ocean, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And then he comes here, and this is the outer boundary of the port.
Okay.
Okay. This big circle, and when he crosses this line, okay, which is at this point in time, and he's going to trigger what's called a port event when he crosses this line, okay?
Okay.
Right there, yeah, when he crosses this boundary. And that port event is going to extend from the time that he enters this big polygon right here until the end when he leaves it, when he crosses over here, once he's gone, all right? And so he comes in here, all right, into the big mother polygon. and then he goes, and then he travels, and then he comes into another polygon, which is called an anchorage, okay?
Yeah.
And then he enters in there, and then he leaves here. So it opens and then closes. And then he goes from the anchorage, and then he's outside of a polygon. He's still in the big port polygon,
Yeah.
and then he goes into it, and then he goes into a terminal, right? And that opens there. And then when he's inside the terminal, he shifts into a birth polygon, because birth polygons are inside the terminal. They're like smaller areas within a bigger area, right?
Yeah.
And then so he'll come into the birth, so that'll open, and then it's going to close. And then his terminal closes, and then his port closes. And all these little events open and close while he's inside this big polygon here, the mother. Okay,
Yeah.
You understand what I say
Yeah,
there?
totally.
And so every time the ship enters, we want to make sure that he crosses this. This is always the first boundary, because it's at that point that what we create, which is what called a port event ID. Once we're sampling the coordinates of the message, and you're querying it, and you're saying, is these coordinates inside our set of polygons? And the answer is yes, bang, open, and you open a port event ID when he's there, and it stays open, right, until it closes over here, right? This one will open and close, open and close, open and close, open and close, right? And so that is what essentially what a port event is that you query the AIS message. If the coordinates on the AIS message is inside a polygon, right?
Okay.
It's inside a polygon, and then while it's inside that, it continues to have events while it's inside the polygon. It could have an anchorage event, could go to the birth, could come back to the anchorage, go to the terminal, and then out of the port, right? So you have all these events which are occurring inside, which are nested under this port event, right? The mother port event, right?
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying there? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And because this is a timestamp system, right? These messages, they're every single message has a timestamp. So when the message, so we know that this message triggered the port event to open, right? We created a port event ID, and we know the exact time that it was open, and we have the exact time which it was closed, okay? And so essentially, we query every single vessel as they come in and they come through. And at the end of it, after it's gone through there, right, we get a closed port event, and we get a total duration for the time spent in each of these. We get a time spent in here, we get a time spent in the terminal, we get a time spent in the berth, right? And we get a time spent in the port. Time in the port, time in the terminal, time in the berth, time in the anchorage, right? And time, so you think about time is the duration. So we're recording the time, right, as they go through, right? Now, all right, this is the purpose of what we're trying to do, how the system's meant to work. So you can understand how the vessel passes through these polygons, right? Okay. And this was his previous port, and he's coming across here. And so what this guy did here, he had a port event where it opened and then it closed, okay? And this one here, he's finished, he's empty. So he's coming across empty across the sea. This is his port, this is here, load port number 1. Comes in here, he's going to have a loading event, right? Okay? Does all this kind of stuff, and he moves through.
Yeah.
And so this is what a voyage looks like. It comes through a load port. Now, so you know how I said we have a coordinate message and we have a AIS message, right? And you're going to have to get your head around all this AIS stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
so this here, right? These things here, which is this right? We have when we go live, our system depends on this, right? This is our provider, right? Okay, everything, right?
Yep.
And we take and we call, and even though they've got all these APIs and you can query it all this way and stuff like that, we only just use we use 2 APIs, and one which is this one which we touched on the other day, which is this was a vessel API basically, and there was a messages API. There's 2 APIs, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, I'll do that just quickly. So this one here, which is this is the messages API, right? Which is the hose of messages, right? Which we've got 3 weeks of, right?
Yes.
Okay. And which is just constantly calling every 4 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever the rate is. It's got all pagination and whatever it might be. And these guys, they've got a thing here. They've got all the fields and all these Python areas and stuff where you can see exactly how all the information is going to be returned to you when you start as a user, right? They'll give you a token. And this is what we're going to do. We just pull this query just all the time, right? This messages, yeah? And you catch up. And then apart from that, we pull this other one, which is once a day, which is this vessels, okay? And this is in how we talked of like validated and unvalidated, right? In the vessels, I'm just jumping over to the vessels for a minute, is that, so we had the static data, which is like the unvalidated stuff, right? This is what it was. This is what's on the message. You remember I showed you on this, on my vessel. So that's it. And this is what we were able to take in the trial was that, right? Okay. Yeah. And we were able to take that and we were able to take these dimensions, right? Okay. Now, if we wanted to, now, as part of this, when we go live on it, we're also going to get another set of characteristics for the vessel, which is going to be here, which is they've given us validated, right? So we've got the validated. We also got the validated as well. Yep. And it's this one. So, right, so this is what we got. So this is the schema of the vessels. This is how it all sits in their system, right? And I'm trying to put all this all together so it all sits neatly in things. And then we're going to get this additional information. See how it says extended, right? Yeah. We get this when we go live, which is we get all these other fields, right? We get a whole lot of other fields, right? Which we get on top of just 1 second, massive files. And I'm just sort of jumping around a little bit, but it just helps you to get how everything is all sort of laid out. Okay. So you know how I showed you this the other day, this is our vessel file, okay? All right. And so we've got like 70 fields, something like that, yeah? Okay. Which all connect to this one vessel ID. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then to this vessel ID, and this is one table. So when I say we're going to load up 2 vessel tables, we're going to load this table in, and we're going to load another one, which has got it's got another set of vessels in it, which is like the fishing one, right? And so you've got to think that all the vessels, all the information is attached to a single unique vessel ID, all right? And this is what we currently have. And then we've got these other fields here. This is a second table, right, of vessels, right? So it's like we've got multiple tables attached to one vessel ID. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. That's what we're going to have in Mongo. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we've got 70 fields on the vessel ID at the moment, but when we go live, we're going to have another 100 fields on top of it connected to the vessel ID.
Okay, I mean, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I'm just and so what I'm saying to you is, right, so this provider, we've got this one, we use this one, which is our vessels, and we call this vessel, and once we go live, we get access to this. And what we would do, we would call this one single API, which is all, what it does, it calls all vessels globally, right? Yeah. This calls one of the most valuable user recognition vessels, validated value, they return the VC, recognize agents, sometimes it's Amount,
just to
okay.
check whether the oil they use
All
is good
right,
or
ship
not
type,
for me,
and then
just
ship
to
type
verify.
I haven't looked at this for a long
मुझे मैं क्या
time.
कह रहा सुनो थोड़ा सा
Just
खाली एक बार ये बता दो कि ऑयल में गंदा है नहीं मुझे नहीं पता ना कोई भी एटलीस्ट आप ये तो बता सकते हो
it's
कुछ ऐड
confidence,
करने के लिए
confidence,
इट्स नॉट गुड
confidence.
देन आई कैन पॉइंट इट आउट
Just bear with me.
अगर आप इसे भी नोट करो रीड देन हु इज गोना टेल मी
Alright. So this is
How
like
to
this is
किसने
you.
रोका है?
You've got all this sort of stuff
Maybe how
available
can I
to
मेरे
you,
हाथों
and it
को
shows
नहीं
you
है.
all
How
the
to
all the
control?
different ways you can get
I can't
things,
spoon
and you've
feed
got
you. Please
trial
do it.
areas and all that
I can't
kind of
spoon feed you.
stuff.
Please do it.
And essentially, what it
मैं वीडियो यार
does
please I just
uh,
I really want
says here
to somebody to do it यार.
specify GraphQL, Python. Python, you're obviously no problem with Python. Okay, right. So this it returns. All right.
Yeah.
So we call this messages this vessels API once a day and returns all vessels globally, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we choose what we want to return that information by, and we go, oh, let's return it by the root query, and we go give it to us by ship type. Okay, right? And so we call.
Yeah.
So this is a vessels API, and so once a day we call this message API, and it'll give us a list of, and you do it, and you go for the last 24 hours. Show me, and it's like, and essentially, what you're doing is you're calling this list here, right? You're calling that list,
Yeah.
right? Which is their unvalidated list, and what it'll do, and that gives you, when you call that, it returns it with a vessel ID, a unique vessel ID, and so any new vessel IDs that have been created in this system, right? We will get a new ID, and we will get those 5 fields, those whatever it is, those fields, right?
Yeah.
Which will come in and which will add to our vessel database, right?
Yeah.
Every day, okay? Coming from this vessel API, right?
Okay, yep,
So we've
yep.
got vessels, and we've got messages, 2 massively different things. Messages is the AIS messages, which is the stream of messages. And when I talk about vessels, I'm talking about this vessel table, right? Are basically our static information, right?
Okay, got it.
Which is fixed to the vessel ID. And I'm making the point to you is that you would call the way that the system works is that we would call this one vessel API once a day, okay?
Yep.
And we get our new vessel IDs, and we would then add them into Mongo, into our our source of truth vessel table, which is going to be this basically. All right. And then apart from that, and that takes 40 minutes to pull in all the vessels, right? Just that one single API. And then this other one, that we're doing is we're calling this messages API just continuously, right? Okay. And this is the one where it returns all the messages, right? And so they're 2 different APIs. And this one here, we create our vessel table. We create this coming from the vessels API, right? And we create our messages. Our messages we send through our matching process and through our pipeline, right?
Okay.
Which are then consumed into our AIS engine. Okay. So we've got 2. So we've got the messages. All right, okay, and then we've got the vessels, which is the vessel table, and then we have the port table, okay, which is all the location IDs, and then we have the port event, which is the combination of the all 3 of them joined together. So what we have here in Mongo, if we looked at Mongo, right, this is the port table, all right, and then we've got a vessel table, which is meant to be this, right? Okay. This is meant to be in Mongo. We've got vessels, right? This is our static vessel table.
Okay.
We've got In Mongo, we've got
Yep.
we've got the vessel, and then we've got the port detail, which we were talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we've got this port event history, right? Which is this is what these guys Spire,
Yeah.
right? These blokes here, right? We've also taken, see this here, port events here. And this is here, and we've taken a copy of the port events. So everything's in here, and so you know you're gonna this is how you can work a lot of stuff out, right? And so we have here, and what it does, and this is your output objects on the port event, okay?
Yeah.
Actual time of arrival, actual time of departure, drafted, actual time of arrival, drafted, actual time of departure, draft change, duration, ID, port event ID, location, port event location ID. And this is all information, right?
Yeah.
Which is relating to, they're the output objects, right? You know, this is what we get here. This is
Yeah.
what they're giving us. This is what they give us. This is straight from Spire, right?
Yep.
Straight from these guys. And they create a port, they create an object ID for the port event, right? And they have a draft arrival, and they have a draft departure or whatever it is, right? And they include these static vessels, okay? These static details. So this is that's the duration while it's inside the polygon, right?
Yeah.
From between start to finish, yeah?
Yep.
That's a drafted arrival. So actual time of departure and actual time of arrival. So that's going to be the difference here, right? Okay. And so there's arrival, departure, there's a duration inside the polygon. And when it's in there, then they also add this information, okay, to it, which is the vessel's ID, to the polygon, right, to the duration information. So if the vessel that was inside the polygon, it's in here, that's how long it's spent 47 minutes and 55 seconds, and that was the name of the vessel, and that's its IMO, and that's its ship type, and that's its MMSI.
Okay.
And then they use a state of open and closed, okay. Which is part of their way to manage it, right? There's open and closed, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is exactly their information. We haven't touched this, okay?
Got it.
And then they have that. So that's the duration of the vessel inside the object. That's the vessel's object details there. And then we have the third one, which is the port. This is their object details for the port, okay? And that is their object, and they go, this is the center point for their latitude and longitude, right? And then that is that there. And so, right? And so if I go here, and this is their stuff, ID 28. So if I went into here, and if I go here, and I went there, and I did that, and I went here, and I went 28, I'm just gonna, okay, which is this one here, right? USEWR, USE Spire location, right? Which is this, yeah? That's their information.
Yep.
Okay, right? And so what I'm saying to you is that this here, right? So we have 98 million records, right? Across
Whole world.
these 11,350 location IDs from our provider Spire.
Okay.
Okay, you understand me?
Yep.
So we've got 2 years of these historical records for all these different port events that occurred in these locations, right, in this country, and that was the name of the location, and that was the type of the location, that's the center point for that location, okay? And that's their system. And they use that for everyone who's using this system, right, to query it. So most of their customers, they want everyone to use all this Maritime 2.0 and use all their APIs, right? But we don't want to use their APIs. We want to take in the messages, and we want to create all our own locations and stuff, because their information is, we've got 40,000 more locations than them,
Yep.
Okay.
Got
We
it.
have all the birth. They don't have any birth information. I've got 1,000 more ports. I've got 500 more ports, and I've got 40,000 births, right? And so we're marrying these three locations, right? And so these guys here, they're giving me all they're giving me anchorages, and they're also giving me shipyards, okay? Because they've got this stuff here, right? So they've got this stuff here, which is like an anchorage and all this other kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so, but this in here, we don't have that. We just got port information, right? So we've got ports and we've got terminals and berths. And so we've got this legacy system, and then we've added this on here. And then we're going to go and take this stuff here from Rotterdam, from these guys, and then we're going to go and add this underneath here. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And so, we've got the legacy system plus our system plus like our port data set plus these guys' port data set with all their locations all lined up, right? So for all of their locations here, it's going to have we're going to have all our names alongside of it. Okay, we have all so at any point in time, we can cross-reference any information between our system and what's actually happening there, because we're paying for this. We have this whole use of this, right? Okay, and we use polygons. We want to be able to create our own polygon, because we need to be able to create polygons around terminals. We need to create polygons around berths. These guys don't have any berths. We need to be able to adjust polygons for our anchorages, for our port boundaries, okay? We're putting all of our own timing. And so where these guys have created a port event, right?
Yeah.
Which has got these 10 things here, we're creating our own port event as well, okay?
Got it.
And we're gonna have we have like 40 fields on that. And that's what this guy's been doing. They've been trying to play around with it, right? For what this port event is, in regard to, they're trying to capture additional information, right? So if you think at an upper level of the entire system, we've got messages, right? AIS messages.
Yep.
We have a vessel table. We have a vessel table which
Yep.
contains the static and the validated fields, right? And so the messages comes from the messages API. The vessel comes from the vessel API, and then we've got the port database which we have built. Okay, and we've got two, and our port database contains the legacy system plus our new system, which is IHS. Plus, we're going to also include Spires, all their locations, into our port database, right? So we make sure. So that means we're completely mapped across every port in the world, and we've got and by putting Spires location IDs into our port database, it means we've now got those 98 million records of historical port events that occurred within the Spire system. They're now linked to our port based on our world port number, right? Based on our location ID, right?
Yep.
So this is where we're getting to a point where once I pull in, I'm at the final point. Once those Spire locations are added into our port database, right? Which this one seems to be the port seems to be the source of truth, right? This is the source of truth here. And once we've had the Spire in, and then that's it. Okay, we're basically and so that would be, and then you get about, and once that's done, then we can start adjusting polygons, right?
Yep.
You go ahead.
Yeah, no. Actually, I am clear. No worries.
So I mean, not immediately, So one of these first things we're going to do, we're going to say, all right, this one here, this file is going to be a source of truth for the ports. And I'm just explaining to you that, oh, by the way, in this port system, this was actually a legacy thing there. And we've actually got to make this, we actually really should make this an object, and we really should call this probably a location ID. And so these are some of the little things that I need to just sort of label down clearly. And I'm just showing you the sort of the road path is to me. I've got this final match which is going on over here where I put all the Spire locations matched up with our IHS port locations, and which will complete that. And then because this is we're pointing this to the UI. We don't want any of this information to point to the UI. And the other thing I wanted to say to you as well is that see how we've got this here. So I said see how this is a main port, right? And I said over here that we've got this all these other files, all these other documents in Mongo, right?
Yeah.
All point to this one referenced ID. So this here, this is a very powerful ID.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that links those 10 records together, those 10 documents in Mongo, which makes it all output on the same page, right?
Yeah.
Which we can see in our UI. So I'm saying that, right, that this is this is a location ID, and this location ID is consistent across every location in the port. So every location ID, whether it's a port, whether it's a terminal, whether it's an anchorage, whether it's a shipyard contained within this P03161, that's going to be, we have a common location ID, and then this one here is also a very powerful ID which joins 5 or 6, 10 documents together here to make all the information output in one file, right? So Rotterdam. So if we put in any of these, they're all going to point to this, to that there. And this file here, this keeps a record of. So in here, we know that in Rotterdam, that this one here, right, that location ID, that's got a center point and a polygon. That's got a center point only, right? Okay, so we know the condition of all of our ports, right? What's got polygons and what's not. And so, and I'm going to share, and so I'll give that to you. But so before we got into going into QGIS and creating polygons, I wanted to show you the structure of what the port looked like, okay? And we've got to just tidy that up with the object and stuff, and I'm telling you what's going to happen in the future. Some of these keys are incorrect. I've looked at that. I know what has to be done there. So there's going to be lots of little fiddling things here. And so that polygon tool to create polygons, that is just one of 3 dozen things that we have to do, right? Okay, that is just like, okay, find a way to create polygons where we can update that information into MongoDB, right? Yeah. That's what I asked you to do, okay? And then if we look into Mongo, and why I wanted to show you this is that I want to show you that the way that all this is all structured, and you obviously can see this in there as well, that the way that this is currently structured in the legacy system, right, using GeoJSON, right, with arrays and features and stuff like that, and the geometry. So So if we're talking about we want to have a system that can then connect to a pipeline that can then update MongoDB, and if what we're doing, what we update is we update a set each array singly, don't we?
Okay.
No, but I'm saying let's imagine if we were in QGIS, right, and we changed a polygon, or we created a polygon, for instance, right? Okay.
Okay.
And you had built a way to update and send it through a pipeline into Mongo, okay?
Yeah.
And the coordinates for that polygon, right? Okay, it would come in and it would update, and it updates as coordinates, right? Wouldn't it? It would update this array, which would be array number, that one there, would be those two. It would update all of these. So that's essentially when we're pulling information in the pipeline in regard to the polygon, we're saying update the array and update the polygon ID, right? And that's essentially what we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what the pipeline. And so update this object, update these arrays in this object, and we point to the ID of the object, right? Which is this one down here. And if it's a polygon, then change these coordinates to the new coordinates.
Yeah.
And so you think QGIS can do that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you can do that.
Yeah, of course. I studied about it yesterday, and yes, possible.
So yeah, and so some of that, and so that's going to come a very big part of it, right? Of what we're going to do. And so my idea is, what I want to do is I want to get my vessels updated. I want to reload 2 vessel files, which will be my source of truth for the vessel. I want to. This is the file here. I want to identify that as the source of truth for the ports. Now we need to make some adjustments to the ports, like is it quite simple to make that section an object in itself, right? I mean, we can actually. It's quite easy to I don't know. Maybe I'll have to ask you, but I mean, like if we could just make, it goes across the system, anything, we just create an object, right? So it's all a matter about getting this scheme, right? The schema correct. So if we say, all right, we've got 2 files, we've now got a source of truth for all of our vessels, now got a source of truth for all of our ports.
Yeah.
I told you what we're going to do with, what I'm still working on with the ports and stuff like that. And so the idea is that we've got all our vessels, we now got all of our ports, okay? And then the only thing which we've sort of got, apart from rules that we have to, write around that, and APIs and different pieces, but on an upper level, we've got the messages and we've got the historical port events as well, right?
Yeah.
So what I want you to think about is that every time, if we're taking in messages is our input data, okay? Yeah. And we query the messages, when it goes into the polygon, and then we record the time and the ID of the vessel once it leaves the polygon, and and everything is recorded against the vessel ID, and everything is recorded against the location ID, right? So when the vessel goes into the polygon, it creates a port event, what's called a port event ID, and it includes the location, and on that we put the location ID and the location fields, and we have the vessel ID and the vessel fields, and when it leaves, we go closed, it's closed, and that gets saved to that location ID. So ship's name, ship type, spent 3 hours here, bang, like that, right? And it also gets saved underneath the vessel's ID, its history as well. So we are continuously, when we query stuff, we're taking in these messages, we're matching them, we're kicking some out, and then we're sucking them into the system after it's gone through a pipeline, when they've had all the variances, and then we query those, and then we query them if they're in the polygon. or not, and then they come out of the polygon, and then we save that event. So we're saving continuously every single day around the clock these port events, which are saved to the location ID and saved also individually against the vessel ID. So and that port event is a combination of fields from the messages of the message ID, fields from the vessel ID, and fields from the location ID. And those three together form what is called this port event. And then that's your history. So you are saving historical events that includes vessel information, location information, and message information to every single location ID in the world where these events are taking place, all based on timestamp, right? So we're getting an historical, so we're saving continuously. Every time an event goes into a polygon and departs a polygon, a port event is created, which is then saved to that location, right? To that location ID, right? And the polygon is a polygon there's a location ID and it has a polygon ID as well, right? So the polygon is around the location ID. So we refer to everything as a location ID. A location ID has a center point, it has a polygon, it's got a name, it's got a type, it's got a X, Y, and Z, right? It's got 70, everything. There's 70 fields attached to the location ID, right? So when the vessel goes in, it triggers a port event, okay? And then when it departs, it triggers another event that it's closed, and that's the duration. It's been in there for 5 hours, okay? And then what we do is we just save that record in our format, right? Our format with all the fields on it that we want, right? These guys, Spire, were giving a port event. You know how they had output objects? You know how these guys had output objects, which was this, which was this, which was this, which was, where is it? Which was here, right? This is their output objects of the port event. Yeah, that's what they're capturing. Okay, right?
Yeah, it's correct.
Yeah. All this, and we do that as well. Okay, but we include more. Okay, we include some more fields. Okay, and so we're using the same process, we're using the same knowledge, but we're using it with our system because we've got more detail. Okay, and what we do is that the idea is that you take these messages in, and then you query them, and then if they're in the port, then you save a record of when they've gone into that port. It's called a port event ID, right? That's essentially what you're saving, yeah? And they have here, and they see how they've got here. If you look here, ID, port event ID.
Yeah, I can look.
Right?
Yeah.
And that ID is that's that ID, right? No, it's that ID. It must be. I think it's that ID that's been created from Mongo. This is the ID which will be from Spire. All right, and this is a record from this anchorage in the United States, which occurred on the 26th of September in 2024, and it lasted, and on its arrival, it had 3.9 meters. On its departure, I don't know, whatever it was, but there's been no change in draft, right? Okay. And it went for 32 minutes. I don't know, whatever this is. What is it? He says it's, I think I noticed it before. What is that? So this is a ship type. I don't know. No one knows what that is, right? So, but essentially, you've got the messages, and you've got the vessels, and then you've got the ports, and you query the message, and you add the vessel fields to it, and you add the port fields to it, and then it gets saved as a port event to the location, okay? Where you have historical, you actually get saved to the vessel ID and to the location ID. Everything Everything gets saved to the
have
vessel
peak
and
OCD.
everything gets saved to the location.
वो
Because
तीन
things
बारी peak कर रहा है
happen
ये
in
चीज़।
the ports, right? And the idea is that we get a whole lot of records under a particular location, right? And as I say, we've got
Yeah.
2 years of historical records. And so the idea is, based on my definition, okay, is that
ये भी
when
wide
and so it's this, you know how I said to you, it's this coordinate message which triggers this port event. It's the one, that's the message which they're moving. That's the one that we're going to be querying when the port event opens, right, which will trigger as it go, we'll know if it goes passes the polygon, okay? And so
कर लो ना यार,
and so
कर लो ना 10 rupees वाला।
as well, in addition to that, we also have a draft. So you can see this one here.
क्यों क्यों
This is, and so mine is much more sophisticated than theirs. But see how they've got this? They've got draft on actual time of arrival, right?
Yeah.
And this refers to, it's how deep it is, right? 3.9 meters. And this is on actual time of departure, which is 3.9 meters. So there's no draft change. But that draft change comes from this other message, which is a message 5. But based on our, and so, you know, so we've created a thing which is called a port event type, okay? And what we do is that we allocate to every vessel based on the, not every vessel, but the vessels that we're outputting, whether it is a load event or whether it is an unload event, right? Or it could be an other. And that could be because he's had a change in draft of 6 meters, right? So if it's more than a half a meter change, you're a load. It's called, by my definition, that's a load event, okay? And so that's how we determine if a vessel if it's loaded. I don't know, I'm not telling you the quantity, I'm not telling you what it is, but it's a load. And so if the draft increases by a certain amount, then it's a load event. If it decreases by a certain amount, then it's a discharge event. You understand what I say there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can understand.
Yep. So what happens is the vessel goes through, okay? And it goes into and when it's in port, it doesn't change any of its messages. It doesn't update. It's not updating information in real time at all. Okay, and so if a ship goes into port and she loads a cargo, and the ship went in there and he had 4 meters draft when he went in. Okay, telling us that he's empty, and while he's in there and while he's loading and everything, he's not changing his draft. He's not changing anything at all. And then he leaves the port. Okay. And he leaves the polygon. And when he leaves the polygon, you know what his draft says? It also says 4 meters, okay? So there's no change. And then what happens within the next 3 to 6 hours, he's going to update his draft. And it's going to say 9 meters, okay? And he's now, he's loaded a cargo. I mean, I can calculate the cargo quantity because I've got another table that's able to do that. But the change in draft to determine the port event type only happens once the vessel has left outside the polygon, right? But you know, I'm getting too technical into the AIS here, but what I wanted to show you was that the structure of our ports, okay, and is there anything you and so I wanted to show you the ports because we were talking about QGIS and stuff like that. So I think, you know, in regard to doing that pipeline and stuff like that, I don't think we're able to do anything with that until obviously we confirm this is our source of truth, okay? This is our ports, and then we can display all of our center points. Now, we can show what we can see within QGIS at the moment. We can just put all our center points, we can see what it is at the moment, where all our center points are and where we have polygons, okay? And I know that we're going to, that all our port polygons, we're going to change them. As in, we're going to adjust the boundary, right? Because if you looked at that one which I showed you on Google Maps, that well, we just basically have to extend it. So anyway, I just wanted to show you. I wanted to take you through the location database. This is the one that's going to be, obviously going to be the source of truth. And what you will see that's also, it's up here, it's under John, right? And so, you know how this was a legacy? You know how I said there's a legacy system, right? Now, I'm just going to, so here, this is one of their old ports, right? They call it a port, whatever, but this is not, so we've not added any information to this. So this would not point to the, to our UI, right? Only ports. And so here, we get into here, If we get into here, and this is why we have this. So we've got this, and so I've checked this, and this seems to be, I've checked in here, into here, but I couldn't find these values. So I think they must have been deleted from the system. So that means I can delete them from here. So in respect to, in how I said we've got a parent location, all right? And this is how I do it. So if that's the location ID, and then this is the parent location of it. And so when I say port, so imagine that's gone. So we've got these three parent locations: port, marine terminal, and area of interest. And an area of interest is something like this. This is an oil field, okay? Right?
Yeah.
So it's not it's out in the ocean. It's an area of interest. So we can draw a polygon wherever we want.
Okay.
We don't have to have it around the port. We can draw it in the middle of the ocean. Okay? And we draw it in the middle of the ocean, and we can count how many ships pass that line in that polygon by size and by type per day. You know, if you're going north or south or east or west. So these guys who work in the shipping, they're always looking how many ships are available for the cargo in the port, right? And it takes time and distance for the vessel to arrive there, you know. And we calculate that. We can see all that kind of information because we record the historical message. We have all the historical messages of all ships moving between all ports, so we know how long it takes to move between all ports. At 98%, the ships move and they follow the same track marks between the two ports, 98% of the time, right? And but we've got that, and then there's got these other ones, and I'm just gonna, and there's one here. These are guys which they're like floating ships out in the middle of the ocean, okay? And this is like, and these are like big gas, and these are gas, it's basically gas and oil. And so when I say parent location, so that's a separate thing that's going to relate to tankers. That's something there. And then our key one is ports, right? And so parent location port. Okay, so all vessels parent location port point to the UI, right? So some of the things here, so these key values here, right, which are contained here, so which relate to our some of the APIs and stuff like that. So for instance, ports that in our UI, if you're searching for a port, it's only vessels, it's only ports it's only IDs that have that contain this information, this IHS information. If it doesn't have the IHS information, you can't search for this place, in the port database, all right? So that's all I've got to say.
Hang on. Okay, sir. So yeah, now I understood. I even recorded the meeting. I will go through the meeting one more time to understand more, like double check, and everything.
So the reason why I wanted to have the call is because I talked to you about, so I agree with you, let's do QGIS. I don't know how, I'm not familiar with it, how to do it. I don't know how easy it is to use or not use to create polygons in there. But if you're confident that's a way that can be done, I can see it's good for scalable or whatever, and we can do a pipeline. So do you need to have to be able to do that, do you need to have data to be able to check it against, or do we have to get all our ports and our locations all, sorted out, all our location IDs sorted and stuff before we go and drop everything into there?
I mean, I didn't understand. Like, can you repeat again?
If we have to if we need to go and load all of our center points and all our location information into QGIS, right?
Yeah.
We have to put our center points and our polygons and our location ID or name or whatever, right? And so we need to get our source of truth with the ports and everything sorted out beforehand, before you load that information into QGIS.
Yeah, I mean, for QGIS, we have to have, port master data like location ID, parent location, and everything, center points.
Well, we have that. That's what I've been going through.
Yeah.
But there's still some tidying that needs to be done. Particularly, it's not separated as an object, and I've got this other bit that needs to be done. And so,
yeah, data is
that's something. You go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, data is the foundation. QGIS is like a editor, and data need to be there, honestly.
Right. Okay. So, all right. Anyway, well, that's what I wanted to show you. So, okay, fine. We're going to go with the QGIS there. And so if I said to you, this is the source of truth, and if we wanted to, and what I'm a little bit worried about is that I'm saying to you here, well, actually, this needs to be an object. I don't know how easy it is to convert this to an object across all of our ports. Maybe that's really simple to do. 2, if we know that this is the location ID, right, and we want to use this. This is it's a big filter, right? And we just need to use consistency across how things are labelled, because even here, right? Because what happens? So see how it's got a parent location, right?
Yeah.
And a location type. So you can call all events, right, by parent location.
Yep.
Okay, by port or by terminal or by anchorage, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got the parent location, and you can also call them by location type. And so an example is and that's the reason why I created it, was that, so if I said, we got just ports, right? So under ports, the parent is location port, but we've got the location type as an alt name, and it's also a subport area because that's connected to the port, and the alt name is connected to the port. And so we've got a main port, a main port, and a main port tanker, right? So they're all ports, and because what happens, how we talk about that we save historical records once to the polygon, to the location ID when we query it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have a whole lot of fields which we save to this port event, right? This port event we save 20 or 30 fields, and then what we do with our vessels, the idea is that, so we've got 15. So we've got all these different vessels, right? All these different. So this is here. So we've got 15 vessel fleet types. Yeah. Okay. So this is upper level. These are the three of the biggest filters on the entire vessel data set, where you can query ships by groups. And so even though we've got like 15 groups of fleets, right, 15 fleets, we only output just this one fleet here into the UI. We take in information on every single vessel, right, and record every single vessel going to every single polygon, right, after we've rejected stuff. But the information that we send to the UI is only in relation to this fleet here, okay, right?
Yeah.
And the difference between that fleet there, they've all got this And so for all of our vessels that we send to the UI, which is just these dry bulk ships, right?
Yeah.
We all have, they've all got these validated fields and stuff like that, okay? And this is all connected to this one vessel ID, which is over here, right? Which is over on the, I'm going to see how we've got a single unique vessel ID, and we've got all these fields connected to it, right? And then I filtered this, and this is just our dry bulk, so just our dry bulk ships. And then for these ones, and then all these guys here, and then these guys get a fleet ID, right?
Yeah.
And so fleet vessels with a fleet ID, so in our UI in respect to vessels, you can only see vessels with a fleet ID, right? So we've got 600,000 vessels, but they're only searching against 30,000 vessels, right? So when we get into here, when we get into Mongo, what I want to do is I want to point the port name to the sure that the correct port names in Mongo here, the port name is pointing to the direct up here, this ship, and I want to make sure that all the ships here that come into here are just vessels that are coming from our dry bulk fleet, basically. And here, and if we go back into here, and so here they haven't even included it, right? So even the terminals, and in our terminals is going to be all this information. It's not even pointing there at the moment. So I need all this terminal information, right? This terminal name. This is all going to point to here, right? Terminal type, right? So a lot of stuff that we have to do is just, so if I've got a source of truth on the ports, I've got a source of truth on the vessels, then I can show you exactly where to point that object to the output where it needs to display in the UI, okay? And then I can also provide the fields that can be included as a way to call that API. So, for instance, if we were using it for ports, I'd say, okay, you could search on the name, you can search on the country, you can search on the verified UN low code, you could use we've got all these fields which they can all search against on the port, right? So if they're looking for this vessel, if they're looking for a port called Durrës, right, they could put in Albania, they could put in ALB or AL, they could maybe put in a verified UN low code, ALDRZ. They could put in, then I think that's probably about it, right? So they could use a verified UN low code, they could use a name, or they could use a country, or we could even let them use like just, how these are like little, could use alpha code, we've got all these ways to, it's just an API. How do I find that location? I want to search it by country. I want to search it by port. I want to search it by code or whatever it is, right? And so I've got these 6,000 or 7,000 ports, which I want to port to the parent location port that I want to point to the UI, which is going to be up here. Just as I've got all the terminal information relating to this port, I want to point the terminal information to in here, so I've got all the list, just the list of all the names, right? And so, you know how I said to you that when a vessel goes into the polygon, okay, right? This guy's an idiot. He's written the raft thing. So what we do is on every time a vessel goes in there, we record the largest. What's called here, the largest dead weight is meant to be the largest length, LOA, the longest ship, the widest ship, the deepest ship, and the biggest ship, right? and we record that. So you know how I said the vessel goes into the polygon and then he leaves, and we record the duration of the time that the vessel spent in the polygon. Yeah. Azad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay.
So I'm going into too much detail, but it lets you, so we record a whole lot of information about things when they go into and out of objects, basically.
Yes, I have recorded everything.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's what I really wanted to do was I just wanted to go through that port database, so to understand how that's structured, because you need to understand that, right?
Yep.
That we've got all these kinds of things, and this is how these guys are structuring it at the moment. And so some of the things that I need to do, these are some of the things that, you know, if we get the ports in there and we get the vessels in there, and then we're going to have it. And I'm actually going to ignore most of their APIs, which currently exist. And I'm going to say to you, right, I need this stuff pointing there. And we're going to probably write a lot of little APIs, you know what I mean? And as part of things that need to be done, in addition to just one of the other things, which was, how do we update polygons, right? There's just like a lot of stuff. And so this is about getting the source of truth for the ports and the vessels, making sure that the information in MongoDB is pointing to the correct locations within the UI, making sure that the UI has got all the other relevant information which it needs to have. And so like things like I'm going to have to share like my design document and stuff, which is what the UI has to look at, essentially, which is this, right? So this is what they're meant to be copying there. And so you can see here, like where these guys, they're just so silly that they haven't done it. So like here, right? So here's this port activity, and it just says, and so what this is the size of the ship. You don't understand. So the ship is a mini. We go from mini ships up to ultra large. It's very large, right? These are like abbreviations for like the size range of a ship, yeah? So like it's a handy or a small handy, or it's a handy max or a super max. And we basically count ships in port doing stuff. But the information that's missing here is like in port berth and weight. And so we've got to put it, and we so we've got days waiting current, average past 7 days. Arrivals, departures, right, past 7 days. And so there's lots of this just little stuff that needs to be filled in here, which is just the outlook of this, right? And then all the information that's going to fill that is going to come at the very end, once we've got all our ports done and all our vessels done, and we've got our polygons in, right? And we've been creating our polygons using QGIS and whatever it is. And then we're going to query, and then we've got 3 weeks in messages, right? Okay, which we can query, and this, which will display the activity. And this is activity, which is while this is while the ships are inside that big mother polygon. How many ships are in port? How many days waiting for each of these sizes of ships? And it just means how long has it been there? What is the average for this over the past 7 days? And then this is just the number of ships that arrived and departed, right? And that's why they're inside the port. And so you think of that's information while it's inside the polygon. This is a list of the locations, of the terminal locations inside the port. And then this is historical information where we say, I said, that's the change in draft, because that's called a load. A load equals an export, or a discharge equals an import, right? And so that's why we come up with a port event type, a load or a discharge or an other or something like this. And again, we just count the number of loads or discharges by months and by annually, okay? And we get all this information, and that all comes from this thing which is called that port event, where we're saving all these records to that continuous locations contained within that port. And all we're doing is we're just totaling up the records within that port, which we're outputting here as a total, right? And so the information will come when we process all the messages after we've got our ports and our vessels in, which we can do very quickly. So I want to finish off the ports and the ports and the vessels. That's the two things that I've spent all my time on. Message, and then the messages. The only thing that has to be done with messages is the matching process and the pipeline. Now, I don't want you to jump into that until we've got the ports and the vessels done, because you won't be able to do it otherwise, because the key to everything is we've got to get all the vessels for the source of truth. And then because the vessels, we get to, we need that to, that gives us the control over everything. So there's lots of things that got those locations and ports, but this thing about the vessels is this. You know how I showed you vessels? Now, the three most powerful, as I said to you, these are three most powerful fields here, right? This R ship type, and our fleet type. And this is where these guys have also got this wrong, where okay, so we've got this as an object, right? Now, I'm saying to you, now I want you to go and query all the vessels that are ship type fishing A class A, right? So you can choose. So what you want to query, that's how you get, so we do all this matching, and then we suck it into the engine, and then I say we've got to query the messages as to what it is. You've now got this ability as to what message, rather than just, you can do a group of you can just, let's query all the LNG tankers, or let's query all the tugboats, or let's query all the container ships, right? And so you get it by, when you go through that matching process and you put the vessel ID on there, then essentially that's what we're doing there, is we're putting this here, which is this really key object, right? That was their previous information over there. And then we've got this here. And so this is what gives us control of messages relating to certain ship types. It's just a very strong filter. But anyway, it's been another long thing, but I just wanted to sort of familiarize you with the ports, right? And I touched on other things as well there, but you got anything you want to say back about that?
No, actually, I just need to look into it more depth, and if I have more doubts, and after seeing the recording one more time, if I have any more doubts, I will let you know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to take it if I haven't shared the documents with you. I've got to set things up through my SharePoint, and I'm going to try and give them to you. Yeah. But I wanted to try and for you to understand that how this is what's sitting behind there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so the idea in Mongo, I don't trust anyone about any information. I know that my provider, this guy Spire, whoever it is, I know their information is terrible, right? I know there's so many errors in it. I picked all the errors up in it. Same with these other guys, so I took the port information. So many errors, picked all the errors up in that. And then I've used a consistent location ID across all my locations in my port. So everything is linked. Everything within the port locations, all linked to each other. So, and I've got all these location IDs in place, and so, but maybe the labeling is not correct. And so so you know how I said, we can query things by, location type, like we can do it by ports or by terminals or anchorages, whatever it is, just the same ships. We can do it by ship type, or we can do it by fleet type, or we can do it. So it's having control over what you can query and what you want to query against. And we've got that in here, right? And that's essentially that's by having our own system and not being dependent on them, we can create all our own polygons. We can name things how we want. We can use, all we need is, we only need a hose of messages, right? And we call this other API once a day, right, for our vessels to check for new vessels. And that's it. And I've got a stack of vessels as well. I've got all these other ones, which are all these new buildings, which I've got all the list of ships which are due to be built, which are being built all around the world, and all the shipyards in China and Japan and everywhere else. where I've got the IMO number and I've got the name and everything like that, but it hasn't yet appeared in the AIS system yet because it hasn't been built, right? So we already know what ships are coming before they appear on the messages, right? And we've got all our message and we've got all our vessels that have all been validated. So we've got one of the best validated vessel data sets around, and we've got one of the most detailed port data sets also around. But with the ports, we've still got to do some work in regards to polygons to help fill that out, and get all those right. And, and then we're and we've got everything pointing to the right places within our UI. And then when we process the messages, we're going to output information into our UI, which is when it's inside it, and then information when it's outside it. You've got to think in things as soon as the message is sent or whatever is transmitted, everything is historical straight away, right? So we are continuously saving historical messages coming in the AIS messages on the host, and we are continually saving historical port events, which combines all the messages from all the fields from the message and the location and the ship together, all in one area, all in one object, which is then saved to that location. And that's what we're always, and that is what we need. You know how I said that what we do is we then determine the cargo type and the cargo quantity. And so what we do, if you're this type of ship and this is location and that's how long the duration was there, and it was also a load event, then we compare that ship type and this location and that size of ship to all the similar size and type vessels that have historical records there, and then that's how we determine what our cargo type is, right? Based on the new record. Making comparison against historical records, right? And so if the historical record has a cargo type on it, then that new record, if it's the same type of ship and it's the same size of ship and it's the same, it was roughly there about the same sort of type, then we're going to go, oh yeah, we reckon you've loaded coal and not grain or whatever it is. And so we're saving these historical records, which we then make a comparison against to determine the cargo type. So that's the epic is if you have these port events, you record the time, it happens in this port, this is for every single vessel, it happens, then the ship just keeps going, it goes to the next one. And then he'll go load, and then discharge. And then what those do, they get combined into a voyage. So there's always a load and a discharge, or maybe 2 loads and 1 discharge, or 1 load and 3 discharge into a single voyage. And when one voyage ends, which is when he's empty, the next voyage immediately starts. So this, it's a lot to take in, but these things are continuously moving. They're moving in and out of these polygons. We record the time, we record the fields, we record values, we add value. So essentially we're just putting, this message which is triggering this polygon to open and to close. We're adding vessel fields and we're adding location fields. We already had the vessel fields, at the start, and then we had the location fields when it opens the polygon, and then that's it. And then we save it at the end. But it's a full-on process, man. It's like a 12-step thing as the message comes in, goes through the matching, goes through the pipeline, record all the different addresses, then query it. And, and this is about, and this is, again, this is all relates to and I showed it to you the other day, and it's probably too much for you, but but it breaks everything down where you get, you get stuff like, actually that's it, you just get it. And so it comes through and then it comes out and you just end up with one type of message, and you get a coordinate, and then it's like, you get a port event that basically opens, you know what I mean? Or you create a port event based, it's all timestamped. But, you will get it. And so, and these are like, this kind of like the pipeline, and this is what we're saving. These are the variances that we're saving in there. And then this is just for our vessels, which are fleet IDs, right? So we take in, there's 100 million messages a day. There's 200,000 vessels. We've got, and we output 26,000 ships. That's all we've identified so far, right? Of dry bulk. We've got 26,000. So we'll take in 100 million messages on 200,000 vessels,
Okay.
and we're going to, 100 million messages per day on 200,000 vessels, okay? And we will match every single message, has to be matched to a vessel ID within our vessel table, okay? And every coordinate message has to be linked to that, to the vessel ID. And then we reject vessels, some vessels is a fishing vessel, and then we send it through a pipeline, and then we report all the variances, and then it comes into the engine, and then that's it. And so we've got all that there. And only then, once it's in the engine, it's now got all the vessel fields on it. We've got the vessel ID, we've got the validated name, we've got the ship type, the fleet type, the whatever it is, right? We put 5 or 6 fields on it for the vessel, and then we start querying it. And then once we query it, and the query it will then trigger the port event, which is the polygon. And then once that's triggered, then we put, so we've got so every message has a message ID. The message ID gets the vessel ID added to it after we match it. Then when it's in the engine, it gets the other vessel fields added to, which depend on the vessel ID. And then it gets queried, and then it opens the port event, and then a port event ID gets created. And then the fields from the location ID get added to the port event ID, and then it, and then at the end you get a closed event which has a duration, and you end up with a port event type, which is a load or a discharge or another, right? That's the epic. And then you join and then these all join together into what's called a voyage, right? Where you have you've got a load port and a discharge port. It sounds massive, right? I know you're confused. I can hear that you're not saying anything there, but it's the way that I talk about it. But it comes back to these 4 things. There's messages, and there's vessels, and there's ports, and there's port events. Okay, and we've got all these different things to tidy them up and to create all these supporting services. So for the ports, we've got to get the ID, we've got to get the center points in, we've got to get the polygons there, right? You know what I mean? But we've got a lot of stuff there. A lot of this can happen very, very quickly, and it's just, I think it comes down to getting all this information, this source of truth, and getting that structured. And identifying, I know which fields are really valuable, you know what I mean, and which are gonna, I can point exactly what needs to be within that API, right? Which you need to create. I know, okay, so, I'll say, okay, fleet type dry bulk, okay, so we can, so, and so we've got all this information coming in, and we're validating and stuff, and we're just pointing this information to the correct place in the UI, and we basically count ships, the number of ships which are, so in a port polygon, there could be 100 ships in there, right? And it could be 20 ships in the anchorage, or 40 ships in the, 56 ships in the anchorage, and 10 ships moving around, and 10 ships in the terminal, and 10 ships in the berth, and 10 ships which are gone, and we just go, okay, and we just go, we just count them. How many arrived, how many are inside, how many are sitting inside a terminal, how many are sitting inside a berth, right? And that's all we're doing. We're just counting, right? So there's a huge amount of effort to try and make the system work, but what you're doing, you're getting live activity of the number of all these ships which are occurring, which is occurring in the port. And this is one of the things I have to share with you, this UI, and so, and this, and why, how this all works, and why it is. So, and I've looked at their APIs as well, So there's going to be I think we're going to be, we're going to be, I'm going to describe to you what the troubles are once we've all got it in there, and we're going to probably create a whole lot of APIs, I think, or whatever it is. We're going to have a good look at the APIs between Mongo and the UI, because there a lot of their information that the APIs are pointing to the old legacy port system, right?
Yeah.
So they're pointing to stuff in the port system, which is this crappy old information. They're pointing to things like this, right? They're pointing to this information when they should be pointing to this information. Okay, so and they're pointing to and in regard to the vessels, in regard to what they're showing in the vessel page, well, there's only the vessels that are the ones which are the dry bulk vessels that have a fleet ID that are of this, of this particular size, which are actually output into the, which they can see as the vessels, you know what I mean? And so we record information on all these other ones, all these port events, because we treat every vessel the same, every port event is the same. Doesn't matter if you're a container ship, doesn't matter if you're a tugboat, doesn't matter if you're a Navy vessel, whatever it is, we record you open the port event, you close the port event, we record the time, and we record the name of you, we record the location there, and then we give it a load or a discharge or another, and then we save it to that location, and that's it, full stop. And then if you have a fleet ID, we then process you for extra cargo information, right, to determine your cargo. So so you're just recording these continuous historical records of all this other kind of stuff, and it's these historical records tells you what's going to happen next, right? Because this ship type between these two ports, he's got 7 of those. He has 7 of those a month. He's got one every 3 days. So I know when the next shipment is, and I know exactly where it's going to, right? So there's a lot of commercial reasons behind it. It all comes down to having everything is about validated information, okay? And I'm telling you that I've got one of the best vessel databases which is validated around, because I told you these guys had 57,000. I've got up to 100,000 basically across these two files, and that's the difference, right? And so that by separating all these vessels, I've been able to segregate stuff and putting this fleet type and ship type on there. Now I can choose. I'm taking in every ship on the world. Well, what do we want to query? Well, let's just query the tanker ships, or let's just query the dry bulk ships, or let's just query the container ships, or let's just query the whatever. We have a choice of what we want to do. It gives us control because we've now identified that ship, and we now can separate and categorize. It's all about categorized information and being consistent, So, and it's just, and so we use this information for matching, and then once we've matched it, we use that information to output. So only our clients see validated information, right? And we only so this is as much about of what we show as what we don't want to show, right? We're hiding a lot of stuff from everyone. We don't want everyone to see what we're doing, and so we're catching this, and we can duplicate this, what we're doing on dry bulk, we can duplicate it across tankers, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a digital twin of every single port in the world, okay? A digital twin that shows exactly every port and terminal and berth and everything, all the facilities inside the berth, inside the port. Because what is happening, it hasn't happened yet, it's going to be coming. This is the first step towards it, which is AIS and standardised information, is that every time these ships go into port, they have to exchange heaps of, it's very document heavy industry and everything like that. And these guys are all looking at ways of using blockchain and using centralized platforms for, transferring documents between, ports and ships safely and, securely and stuff like that. And there's also this AIS, there's an upgrade coming to it, which is much bigger bandwidth and more speed and information and all this other kind of stuff. People are investing heavily. And so these digital twins of ports. Essentially, that's what we're trying to do, is in regard to ports, have a digital twin of every port in the world, which we can then connect people to, right? And as part of that, you've got to have everything obviously labelled correctly and all that other kind of stuff. And if you want to record information about vessels, then you've got to create a polygon or a geofence to be able to record the time in there. That's the only reason. You know, I've got a really nice port database, but I haven't got my polygons yet. But you've got to get your polygons in there, and you do that once. You only need to do it once, right? And then you just save records on everything. And then you continuously producing these historical records of everything and where all your other locations are. And so, you know, you're doing this on your digital twins. You're trying to get the digital twin of every port in the world. And then in addition to that, you're trying to identify every single vessel in the world, trying to identify what the ship type is, what is the sub-ship type. You know, you've got to use these other validation things. And so you're trying to get every ship in the world and get make a digital twin of every port in the world. And then we have to determine what the cargo is on every ship in the world in every port in the world. And that's what we're trying to do, right? And we can do that based on historical. So huge effort, right? But if you get your, and I seriously have I've got all the queries, I've got everything to nail it, mate, to absolutely kick it out of the park. I can tell you exactly how it works. I know how to get every single output, all contained, all the information is contained within our Mongo database, and it's just about writing the API and I can see by looking at this if I'm able to get these ports and these vessels structured properly, and I've got my system, and I've got it matched up against Spire, who's my provider, who we've got all that access to, and I've got this legacy system, then that means I've got a complete port database, right? And and those polygons, to get those polygons in there, that might take some time. I don't mind. We can automate it. There's a whole lot of different ways that we can look at stuff. There's out of all the ports in the world, most of them is just one large single polygon with other little ones inside it. But there's about 400 of them, which are these really big ones, like this one, which is in Rotterdam. But they're all kind of achievable to, it's about getting everything into a process where we're able to do that. So I'm now working on trying to put everything together, what needs to be done. I'm going through my head as to having a look at that, how to do it, and I want to try and present that to you. But I wanted to have this opportunity to talk about this stuff, and then I'm going to tell you that there's these files that are going to come, which is going to be these vessel files, and also here we need to make this file the source of truth, basically. So I don't know what happens if we said this is the port detail, right? This file here, which is port detail. Now, if I looked at under John, right? So what happens if we deleted this other stuff from the local? Will that make a problem?
No, actually, local was, I told you as earlier also that local was, for testing and everything. So we can delete that, but
it's different, right?
Yep.
It's definitely different.
Yep.
So,
but I will suggest, on the way we can delete. What do you think? Instead of deleting right now.
Yeah, and so essentially, what I want to do is I want to just have our set of ports and vessels, and say, look, this is the truth. This is our vessel. This is our ports, right? That's it, right? And then everything else is either it's port events or messages, and so I can go through those little things that can be done there. And so I'm literally, largely, there's not one API that's going to go untouched, and I think we can very easily skip through a lot of these APIs. And so I want to maybe have a look, and so one of the things too is I want to have a look at how they've actually, this here, you gave me what did you give me? You gave me the audit on that, man. Yeah. What was that? And that was like, where is that gone to, man? I've got to sort my shit out up here.
Yeah.
Mm. Where is it? Sorry. That's Ed. Where have we got it, man? Where's that audit?
Let me send you again the MongoDB audit.
Huh? The audit, yeah.
Yeah, just let me
Where
see.
is that?
Let me
Here it is. There it is, right?
Yep.
So here on the audit, right? So something like this. So
OTP.
where is
154020 गया 1500 गया 123
so something like this, right?
एक second.
Right. So
Yeah.
this API, so he's calling a UN low code, which is, I mean, it's a little bit
123.
silly. So,
232.
and even he's using these things like cargo type, which is just stupid. He's not even, there's nothing called that. So,
Yeah.
and he's coming up with these things like unload ID, right? And load ID. So these are just, do these exist anywhere? I mean, they're not, they're just something that he's calling the API, but they don't exist. See, like this is, these key, how do I see these key fields that relate to an API in Mongo? How can I do that? How can I see that?
I mean, that's why in the audit I actually mentioned, like these are the particular fields are being used in API and these are not. But yeah, actually you are saying that
So
these particular.
if I'm in here, can I see this? So like if it's got this, how can I see the APIs, the fields which are connected to it? Is there a way to do that?
No, I actually looked it into from the code base, not from the MongoDB. It's not visible,
I can't. What is all this stuff here? What does that all relate to? That's
just a simple way of like these are just a different way of architecture, nothing else. So yeah, from MongoDB you can't see which APIs are being used. In the audit check, I actually did it from the code base. I'd like to know.
okay. So you can see. So when you say this is the document shape, these are these for this particular API here, this TM Port Exchange. These are the actual fields loaded at, unloaded at, and cargo type, which he's put under there, and he's created this load ID and unload ID. Is that right? And draft discharge sum.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. And what that is there, and this is the trade matrix, and so that comes down to this thing which is here, which is. Again, this is just, oh my God, he's just killing me, this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no worries, take your time.
What happens here, and this is why you need to have a look at this, which
Yeah, I
is
will
this.
look into this.
Yeah, I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this file with you, but I want you to see like this, right? So
I already have this MongoDB.
Yeah, but just bear with me on this one. This is my UI, right? So you know how I said I've got the port overview, which is at the top there of the vessel. This is what this is. That's the port overview, okay? And then I've got this one here, which is this port activity vessels. This is the number of vessels in port and berthed and waiting and all this other kind of stuff, right? And so we do it. We're just counting ships, total days, total vessels, all right? And then this one here, this is these terminals. We've got all these terminal locations inside the ports, and this is the name of the terminal. And all we're doing is recording the biggest weight and the biggest length and the biggest width and the biggest draft at each of it. Oh, and there's 4 bursts there. And then this is regard to, and this is the average time spent inside that polygon. And this is coming from a calculation which I'm doing. Okay. And then again, we're just counting the number of ships, which is the import. Here you go, 2023 or year to date. We've had 40 Capesize ships. We've had 15 Capesize ships, okay? And at the end, we have a total vessels and we have a total volume as well, right? You know what I mean? And so that's what we're doing. We're just counting the number of ships, and then we add everything up, right, on a monthly and annual basis. So this is all about activity, imports, exports, and it's all the information recorded on in the port, and it's also recorded against the ships. And then and then we have this trade matrix, and so you're drilling down. This is in a port of Japan, right, so to speak, and these guys are looking. And so when you get down into this trade matrix here, you get an import or an export, and because we've defined what they are. And so you go into a country, and again, we have all these. We're just counting the number of ships, and then we get to the end here. We go total ships, and then we're just counting it, right? There's the total volume, total quantity for country, and then we go total shipments, total quantity by cargo type, and then we get it, and then we go into the individual, and then we go into the ports, and then we have total shipments, total cargo type, total cargo port. So this is like a trade matrix, right? Where we're counting ships, how many shipments, and then we're adding the cargo volume, all right, to the cargo quantity to each shipment, which is a calculation that we do. And simply that's what we're doing. We just output this information, and that's saved there, and it's also saved here under the ports, and it's also saved in the history under the vessel history. But these APIs, which are in Mongo, which are over here, and I asked you, can you show me the the audit? So we're probably going to do all these APIs again, man. We can probably build around it. We might change, instead of calling that unloaded app, we might call that.
Yeah. Okay.
What have I called it? Discharge, right? You know what I mean? So I understand you've tried to give an idea I understand what the intention is, but basically, even in here, he's fucked it up, right? He just hasn't got it right. He's missing all this stuff, and I know, and what he's doing is that it's not, and even the order of what it is, the order of the API as to how it drills down, or what's included in the get information, is not. So this document shape, this is expected. You think it includes this, or you don't know? Or you're saying you think it does?
I mean, I actually right now I had to look into it.
So largely, right, so all these APIs, right, and so this is we're going to have to, so it's all about getting this information correct in here, and then pointing that correct information to the correct fields. We've got the vessels going to here, we've got the ports going to here, and we've got the terminals going to here. And then basically we're going to be doing some, let's finalise the API for this one. Let's finalise the API for this one, for each section of it within the UI there, or whatever it is. That's all we're doing. We've already got all the test data. We've got it all there, and we just got to make sure that it's all showing up correctly and what it is. And then, it's mostly going to be around doing that and redoing the APIs, and also that process of creating these polygons, right? It's just a separate process of something big, right? So
yeah.
That's what we're up against. Vessels are like 95%, and even 95% done, maybe 98% done, right?
Yeah.
For what we have here.
Yeah.
So, I've got some other stuff that needs to be added to it, but, these things, just as we've got 3 sort of port databases integrated, we've got our vessel database comes in 2 parts as well, 3 parts, 4 parts. We've got our raw plus our verified again, and then we've got an extended. So we've got these huge, so a vessel ID's got 200 fields connected to it. A location ID's got 100 fields connected to it. Whether it's in 1 table or 2 tables, but they all point back to the same vessel ID. So we've got multiple tables relating to, we've got 8 IDs across the system, right? 8 or 9 IDs.
Yeah.
So, and you know how I've got that referenced ID as well. So this is how it is. This is that port structure is important to understand. And so maybe better labelling. I can do better labelling instead of calling it world port number. I can call it location ID, and that's consistent with what I've got within my, how everything is referred to within the design document and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot about just tidying, which I will do is just getting it right from now, because these guys have sort of loaded it into here a little bit sloppily and have not really labelled things very well, and they've used some old fields from the legacy system which are pointing to the wrong places. So it's a bit of a clean up, right? Okay, to get it all prepared. In combination with having a process to be able to update and visualize our polygons. And once we have that in place, then we've got all the messages, which is the input data, which we can then use to trial, right? The message, querying the messages and opening the polygon and closing the polygon and stuff like that. And I've got all the templates for all that kind of stuff. So, but there's no point, there's no point for me going to you, Azad, or once the port's in there and once the vessel's in there, I'm going to go, okay, this is what it is. This is the matching process. Go and do this. See if you can do this. See if you can do it better than this.
Yeah.
And once we've gone, right, great, we've got that matching process nailed down. That's not going to take very long. All right. And then, okay, we've got to set up the pipeline. And then we're getting there, and we're just about there, right? Ready for processing. We've got 2 billion messages we can process, right? So we've got plenty of stuff to do that, right? And so I'm thinking there's things, time and whatever it is, but it all starts with these loading these vessels in and making sure we've got this point of truth between the location and the vessels and stuff like that. That's where it all starts at.
Yeah, I mean,
and you can do Python. You can do Python easily, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's two things that I want to do in regard. I'm going to ask. I can give them to you tomorrow, and I can give some instructions on them. And this is there's a couple of really key values on here, right? So I just want to show you, I'm just going to show you this just for 1 second, and I'm going to let you talk. I'm sorry I've cut you off a few times. I'm just trying to, because I have so much in my head, I'm just trying to get it out. But, so this one, I have to redo this number. This number has to be redone again, and maybe you could do that, right? Right? So this file's complete, and we can do that. And that's like a rule that we have to put on there, right? Which relates to this, and I have the rule. And that tells us if that number is valid or not, okay? And then I think we can also, and we should also do that on this one here, which I haven't done yet, which is here, which is on that static IMO, and put another column in here, which would be if this is a valid number or not, right? Because this has got all sorts of crap in it as well, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so what happens? So that means that this vessel table is 99% complete. It needs to I've got to rerun that. That's got to be done here. That's true, and that's got to be true. So I can give you a quick, simple instruction on that. And the other final thing that I'm going to say to you is that I've been thinking about it, and I think we're going to do it. I think we should do it, because I know that it makes a huge difference, is that we are going to go, let me go here. Let me just see what happens. What have I got here? Have I just got this? I think we should also have a second column here, which is going to be, and you're going to agree with me. See how we've got static data name, and I'm going to put another one here, and I'm going to put, and I'm going to trim it. I think we should have, the name should be trimmed, right? Because there is lots of stuff in here. Because if you want to, because the key to everything is, you know how we talk about matching? We want to match the identity of fields on the messages to fields in this database. This is our main, these are our matching fields, right? And so I know it changed on the matching process from about 10% up to about 84% by doing some trimming on some
If you
sets
took it
of
out from that
messages.
तो सही खराब है,
But
बाकी सब सही है.
come on, baby. Let's have a look at what we've got in here. Why am I not getting that?
Come on,
Have a
baby.
question mark.
I heard Australians साफ
So, but
Because it's full of everywhere.
you know, we have all these fields which. So look at this, right?
तो
See
मरते
this here.
बहुत होंगे
There you go.
snakes से.
This is kind of the stuff we're looking at. See that?
Yeah.
This here. These guys are all transmitting on the same MMSI. Okay, all these vessel IDs. 1, 2, 3. How many are there? They're all unique vessel IDs. Okay, and they're all sharing this MMSI, which is false. I know it's a false because it doesn't match whatever it is. And then on his name, these are the names that these guys are outputting. He's putting this one. He's putting that one. He's putting that one. You know, so. You know, so the thing is that one, in the question comes down to it, it's like, based on these fields here, right? If you look at that, are these all the same ship or not? Compared to you, what do you think? So they've all got the same MMSI.
Yeah.
They all happen to be transmitting using this same common number, right?
Yeah.
Which is their static data IMO. Our provider happened to call this one an anti-pollution ship. He called that one a high-speed ship. He called that one a pilot vessel. He called that one a port tender, the search. I mean, he's just put. I don't know. You know what I mean? He's put a different name. How is he determining that? I don't know, right? And then he's got his call sign up here, which is meant to be another unique identifier, right? And he's got 3D and a dollar figure. And that's the same, and that's the same, but he's got different dimensions, right? And so the whole thing is, you've got this on this whole side over here, you've got this whole, so when this ship transmits, when this MMSI comes in, right, on the message, now you're not going to have this AID, so this, when it comes in, you're going to have to match that AIS message for transmitting on that MMSI is going to have to be applied to one of these vessel IDs. You know, which vessel ID are you going to put against that message, right? So your matching system, right, is comes down to this MMSI. You know, it's good to know if it's true or false. We've got a name, and we've got these dimensions, and we've got this other stuff here, right? You know, and because we haven't been able to match it against anything. That's why we don't have any this other static information all on this other side, right? So we've got all these stacks of these things like there, and this is where machine learning comes in really helpful, because we know there's a whole lot of rules as well around these, that we know that these two numbers should equal that number, and these two numbers should equal that number, right? So, you know, there's like, we have timestamps as well. So that's when he's changed his name, you know, and so, you know, you've got and that's literally,
It's another.
you know, which is the vessel ID going to be?
Huh?
I don't know. It's very hard. And so,
Huh? Not our money.
now this guy, now, you know, and so you get into a bit of,
It's the one that he gave.
you know,
You're not gonna
do we
use our
trim
money.
these names and stuff? I don't know, mate. You know, it's a bit of a,
No.
Why?
it's very, very, you know, it gets into difficulty there. Now, the thing is,
Because.
only about 15% of it is like this, right? Okay? Most of it's good, right? And in fact, all the information that we output, right? We take everything in. We take everything in, but everything we output, all,
Because this thing can.
is we only output this, has all got beautiful data.
But
Okay, so we don't have any problems. So we should be able to match all our stuff which we have to output easily, right? But the question is, okay, how do you deal with the exceptions of these other things? You know what I mean? It's like, what is your matching or additional matching or whatever it is, and what will happen is that all those, if that MMSI comes in, it will be unmatched,
Slap and you will remember.
right? It won't, because we won't be able to match it against the vessel ID because we don't know which vessel, at this point in time, we don't know which vessel ID applies to it, right? And so,
you got angry that.
and even so, you've got all this stream of hosing messages coming in and you're trying to match them against stuff. And if you've got good data, you can match it well. And you can get up, and we went from 84, we got up to like, we went from like 5% to like 93%, right? We can do it. I can show you we can get it done, right? And so we get, but there is
So if
some
you will do
troublesome
any
data.
transaction,
And
he will
so,
let you
and then if you've got this troublesome data, it's like, okay, how do you deal with it? And then it's like how you deal with exceptions. And so, okay, we just deal with them as unmatched, right?
See, मैंने खरीद
And
लिया
then
ना
we've got
protein
other
powder.
values
Protein
which
powder
are
भी
on the
खरीद लिया।
message which we can use to help classify the vessel, but you know, we can still process the vessel as being unmatched, you know. So it's being comfortable, you're being comfortable with having valid fields and unvalid fields and having empty fields and duplicate values. And so apart
अभी
from
कुछ
that whole
recent
matching
transaction
from
नहीं
the
करी क्या हमने
messages
हमारे पैसों से?
to this vessel table, it's also matching
Did you do anything above 500?
fields, you know, matching, you know, things, you know, and that's why we introduced also a common
150 plus.
internal ID for the vessels, a way to manage it, because some vessels might have more than one vessel ID. So all the issues I've talked about, we've looked at it, we've thought about it, we've gone, okay, this is the solution for it, right? So we've got a whole lot of way which I'm going to share with you as to how to approach some of these problems, and you're going to come up with, you're going to go, and I'm going to want you to come up with something better, and that's it, right? Because we've got the tested kinds of things to do that, and I think we can push through a lot of it, you know, quite, you know, not too difficult, but it's just a really broad topic. There's lots of, you know, things that make it difficult. Things have to be done in certain orders for the next thing to be done. Like we've got to have our vessels and our ports in to have them source of truth before we start creating the polygons. And we've got to, you know, so, you know, and things have to happen, you know, and we've got to make sure that we've got, you know, that where everything's pointing to the correct port name and not the old legacy system. You know, before we start to process stuff, but you know, this process around matching and everything like that. So it's this whole matching thing going on here at the initially, and then you've got this querying thing, and then you've got this, you know, you've got these polygons and these port events, right? So the upper things, the messages, the ports, the vessels, and the port events, they're the four big things. And that's what I'm breaking things down in for you now as to what needs to be done. And we're going to start with the ports and the vessels because that's the main thing. And then, you know, and then I'm going to get you to ask you to do okay, let's get the matching pipeline happening for the, you know, for the vessels. Or I might say, okay, right, we've got that now. Let's go ahead. Let's go and get the pipeline started on the, for the QGIS or something like that. So, I mean, you can't, you know, so there's things like, so there's enough out there for it to be done, for different things to be done, but things have to be done in certain orders for the next thing to be able to to be accomplished, right?
Like, can you come
So
around like 30,
that's why it's
like,
just a
or
little bit
something? He was
annoying
he
like
was not
that.
saying
Or it
anything.
just
I
makes it
come
things,
around like
you know,
35,
it's
like
not just,
40, like
you know, go ahead and do
before
this.
this and
It's
otherwise,
you know, we've got to do this, and we've got to do this,
like
and
she
we've got to do
like
that, and then we can do
she
this,
was
you know?
start scolding.
Like, yeah. So yeah, like, what actually I just want to ask you. So like, after all, like, what's our next plan is about?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to organise some money in the next 1 or 2 days, okay? And as we agreed for up front there on that, and I'm going to, and then I'm going to give you these 2 files, right? And then I'm going to give you this file here, and so I need to. So on
I
this
already
file,
have this MongoDB already.
huh?
I already have this MongoDB.
What MongoDB? This is not Mongo. This is an Excel file, right?
Okay,
This-
okay, okay.
This has got to be reloaded, right? So
Yeah.
this vessel files in here, I'm saying they're old and they're shit,
Oh, okay, okay.
and I have to give 2,
Yep.
and I've
I
got two files in here,
Yeah.
which whether we change into one, but it's now going to become our sort of truth for vessels.
Got
Okay, so we're reloading the vessels in, okay,
Yep.
because I don't, you know, they just like they've got there in the ports, they've got an old version and they've got a new version.
Yeah.
Right? And they're the same with the ships. And so if we've got the latest version of the ports and we've got the latest version of the ships, great, that's all we've got to do. And then you can get stuck into all the other stuff. But this is the stuff so I'll give, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I've been looking at and thinking about and whatever it is. And that's why I just needed to run through, you know, I asked you for an opinion on this thing last night in my mind about the polygons and stuff. And then I've also, okay, all right, what can I get you to do? How do we start with this? And I'm like, okay, right, we've got to do this. And so, yeah, I want to work through the ports and the terminals, once we've got this stuff in there, and just work through these APIs and make sure everything's pointing to the correct things, okay? And then we're going to get stuck into the messages, and or at the same time, I can say, all right, go ahead, start doing the pipeline for the QGIS. I don't know what you need. I mean, you could start doing that now, but I don't know how. I haven't got your information to load into it yet, right? Because we've got to load that in, and we've got to just finalise that. So I think a whole lot of things can probably all happen at the same time. So I don't want you to be sitting around waiting for me. There's things that I'm going to have to do, but I want you to have enough that there's always going to be something for you to do.
Okay. Got it. So meanwhile, you know what I will do today? This whole conversation is been recorded today. Like, I have recorded through my actually laptop. So I will go through this again and see this whole conversation again in depth, and I will make out the points, all these things in more depth, more properly.
For you, this is for you. This is an understanding. You're on a learning curve here, right?
Yep, I understand.
And what I sent to you yesterday. Now I gave you a whole lot of documents yesterday. Now I know you can skim over stuff, and I know you can understand. You know, in regard to Spire, you know. So there's a couple of really big things. Spire, we have access to all of that, right? That whole system there, and you know that's something. If you want to, you know, once we get this going, then there's someone who's going to have to be calling those APIs every single day, right? You know, and you're my team, and I want you to do that. Okay, I want to carry on there. So you're going to have to, at some point, get familiar with it, right? Or get your team familiar with it. And we've got these 2 APIs, right? But there's all this other stuff you can do there, right?
Got it.
Now, so that's just, that's a common sense thing. Now, the other thing why I sent you all these other documents yesterday is that this data set has been around for 20 years, okay? And there's all these professors and all these other different people, and they've all tried and tested this data in all these different ways, because everyone's got these same problems that I'm talking to you about, all these problems with bad things and question marks and @ signs and everything. Everyone has to deal with the same problem, right? And everyone's had to do that. And so anyone who's using this as a reseller or whatever, they're going to have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And it then comes down to this matching process, and essentially that's what that is. And I know all these things can all be overcome. And some of the things what I shared with you in those documents yesterday is like how these guys have looked at it. They use a system, we use DB scan, and this is a way to, it's got a lot of examples in there, and it's like, or how do I? And another document is how do I estimate the payload, which is the cargo quantity on board of a vessel by just using AIS. Another one is what information can be mined from AIS and how can we use that? Well, how are other people using it? What can be done, and how do people address these issues? You know what I mean? And so that's just some background information for you to sort of like, I don't expect you to know it or whatever it is, but it's just to open your understanding of how things can be addressed. Like AIS, there's a lot of stuff out there, okay? Now, in addition to that, there's, we're going, all right, well, great, that's great. We've got all this AIS stuff, but what about all these polygons? Well, let's decide on a system on how we can do that. Well, we've also got to think about the curvature of the Earth, and we've got to think about the how polygons are displayed, if they're displaying properly, and and how are those, how do we set it out, and whether we WKT or whatever it is, and so and then we've got to measure things against it. We work about distance, we talk about time, we talk about speed, right? And speed times time equals distance, right? It's just, I'm just trying to get your head around. This is a big, broad topic. We've got all these different locations IDs. We work with location IDs. We've got these vessel IDs. These are some of the problems that we're dealing with. These are things you should be aware of, right? Because if you're not aware, you're going to encounter these problems. And all these problems which we're going to encounter, there's all stuff out there. There's all papers out there to do it, how to deal with it, right? And even our provider, who has this system here, which is called Spire, which has all the APIs. They show you all the outputs for everything that we're doing, and it shows you how to do it. How do I do this? How do I track the ship? What it is. It's got all the definitions there. It tells you that it's a string, and they tell you all sorts of stuff, right? So it's a learning thing, and so and I can't. But you're here to build, and I'm trying to get as much done in a short amount as possible time. There's things, and there's things that have to be prioritised, and things that have to be done in certain steps. And it all comes back to validating information. So I've spent months and months on getting all this information correct, and I've now just got to get these final bits, so we get these center points in. I've got to finish off my polygons, I've got to make sure that everything's all pointing there. And so, I wanted to show you some of the inefficiencies of that legacy system and the newer system, and then we've now got to put the Spire locations into our port, because if we've got the Spire locations, then we've got everything. We've got our provider system mapped into our port database. So, and that's because they've got all their historical records attached to it. So that's where we do all our historical information from, right? And all this historical information, these 98 million records over 2 years, for all the vessels which are our dry bulk vessels, right? Which have got a fleet ID. After we create a dead weight table, which allows us to calculate the cargo quantity, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start putting the quantity and the cargo type alongside all these port events, right? Which is a port event loaded. So we do it. So all these historical port events, we're going to give a definition whether it's an export or an import or a load or a discharge or whatever it is. And so, it's more about building the process. It's all about the process, is how to capture this information, how to join it together, and how to make it all, we're continuously taking in historical information. So you just got to think. So we take it in, we've got to match it. So how can we save that information to the vessel? How can we save that information to the port? What format should that be saved in? I've got all that information, it's there, and it's all going to come together quite quickly. But it just sounds like a lot, because we've had to talk about it a lot, because things require a discussion or a definition or some explanation,
Good
because it's
is
a
that
little
also,
bit
no? Taste is
new
not very
and
good.
it's
I
a
think
little
taste
bit,
फर्क नहीं पड़ता, you always taste earthy only.
it's
Taste
the
का
language, and there's a lot of,
देखो सस्ते इसलिए
way
होते हैं
that
क्योंकि ना
things sort of,
जो plant protein होता है ना,
similar names but
that is
slightly
the
different.
plant
But,
protein
we're
का
going to,
20
it's
से
called a
भी कम
UN
होता है
loco, but we use the
देखो।
verified UN loco. Or, and it's like got a
Okay.
static data IMO, but it's also
Best
got
muscle growth के
a
लिए
validated
best
static data
digestion और
IMO,
vegan के लिए
So we've got 2 or 3 sets of
ये
information
देखो
across it, so it
सुनो
makes
तो
it, I can understand
पर
how
सुनो मेरी बात listen
strange it
you
must
instead
look
of
from
saying
the
no
outside
you
looking
open
I'm
in,
searching
but
where
it's
अच्छा
more
सुन तो
about
बैठ
trying to
तो
understand
जाओ
how
rights
and why
हाँ
this system
ना है
is,
ना
how it works,
the
and
thing is right now you need to
what we're
understand
trying to
okay
achieve with it, which
ghee
is a
protein का starch
combination of
ज़्यादा नहीं
things
होता
of,
whey protein में होता है क्योंकि
well,
इसमें animal
we want to
fat
be
वगैरह
able,
ये फंक्शन भी होती है इधर pea
we want to
protein
be
में
able to
नहीं
match
होता
things, we want to be
समझ
able to query things, we want to be able to
ये
add
रूट
stuff
है
down,
क्योंकि
we
इनका
want
ना
to
मुझे पता
save it, we
स्टॉक्स
want
का
to
पता
output
हुआ
it, it's all
कि
this other
भाई
kind of
कितना
stuff.
ये कौन
But
है कौन सा
this
ब्रांड
one
इससे मत लो
um,
प्लांटिको वगैरह तो ये सस्ता है
we're going to start
मैं बताता हूँ
tomorrow. I'm probably going to give you a couple of files,
yep
and I'm going to organise the money, and I'm going to have to think about, and I've got like a format as to how we can try and maybe track the tasks or something
sure
like
sure
that.
sure
And I'm just kind of, and so we're just going to, it's like I don't want to go into 100 miles an hour and without you sort of, you'll get lost, right? And so I want to try and keep things, if we get the information that we have to use initially, if we get that all squared away, and then there's areas where you can just rip into stuff, like just give me the solution for this. But now that I've got access to Mongo, I can see clearly how these queries can be written and what objects need to be there. So, I'm working away in the background to give you stuff to, which allows all this information to come together, and into that will hopefully make sense to you.
yeah got it so I understand yes carry on please
So, all right. Is there anything else? I mean, you got anything you want to ask me?
No, actually, I just apart from just today learning curve for me, I will read this recording today, as I told you earlier. I just want to ask like any other task I have to do today, like any sort of thing apart from reading.
No.
Or it's all about
So
now.
the-
It's all on you now, right now, the documents and everything.
Well, this is me. This is me saying to you, I need a few days to get everything together to create some tasks which I can then give to you, right?
Sure.
And while I've been doing that, I've been trying to have a couple of calls, which are a bit of a learning call with you, to not really a learning, but an explanation call to just try and explain to you what it is, because I've now got access to Mongo and I can see what these things are, and just trying to get you in the right, thought of mind for
Yeah.
vessels and ports and stuff, and making you think about stuff, and you think about, you've got to think about polygons, and you've got to think about messages, and you've got to think about messaging, and you've got to think about the how things are structured and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was trying to give you an idea of validated and unvalidated, and these are some of the things the challenges that we've got, and this is how other people are doing things. So just trying to broaden you into it. And I really like
ये
your
वो
input
है,
back on the
sweetened वाला,
few
मैं
years.
unsweetened की बात
Everything
कर
you
रहा
give
हूँ.
back to me is
100
always
बार.
really
Then
good.
this
Makes
one
it
is much
helpful
better,
for
yeah.
me, right? Really, really good. And I
Because
try and
of one
lock all that
PDF
away.
like
But I know you're eager
मैं
to
ये कह रहा
start
हूँ,
as well and to
pea
get and to
protein
rip
isolate
into
लूँगा मैं, no
things.
nothing emulsifier. I
And
promise you, baby.
if you hear what
Yeah,
I'm
why
saying,
can't
there's
we
certainly
just
enough work there to do
Because
it.
मुझे
But
नहीं डरा इसलिए मुझे
if
उस
we
पे
get it
न्यूट्रा
right
बेबी
here at
न्यूट्रा
the
बेबी अभी
beginning
बहुत ट्रेंड
here,
कर रहा
and
है इतना
then
गुड इंग्रेडिएंट्स
I think I'm
And this one I'm trusting
probably,
this.
and you can
I
work.
don't
You've
trust
got
anything
you can
except
work in the
left
UI,
side,
right? You
some
can
this
work
is
with
available,
React, and you
some
can
Yeah,
do
this is
any.
already
There's
है.
nothing
अगर इसमें दिखा दो तो
really
same चीज
that's
लो मैं दिखाता हूँ अगर नहीं हुआ तो मुझे बताना
you're not comfortable with.
no sorry I didn't get last thing
So even based on our UI, I mean, even the UIs, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done to the UI. So you can even work on things on the UI as well,
yeah
right?
definitely anything UI backend scripts MongoDB yes
Right. Yeah. And because you can do that, and because you can do Mongo, it's also good that Mongo's got this GA-JSON and stuff, and so you're going to get more into this sort of, working with arrays and coordinates and stuff, which maybe, I know you can do a lot of stuff, but it's a really big area. But, And so, and I know the fields. I know exactly the fields that I want to point from Mongo to the UI, right? And so, and what fields need to be included there. And that's just a matter about writing an API, right, to show those fields into that corresponding field in the UI, right? So that's not, and I think we can push through that pretty quickly,
Even this
right? That's not a lot of effort, is it?
I am so sorry. Actually, last thing also I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know. So when we talk about the UI, and then we've got stuff in Mongo, and what we do is we point values and fields from Mongo into the UI, correct, right?
Yeah.
And if I know what the fields are, take this field and this field from our port system, not from the legacy system, so we can easily point all the information correctly, and we just create an API. That's the one for that page, right? And to make sure that all those fields are displaying in the correct places, yeah? So that won't, my point is that I think we can create these APIs quite simply and quickly, and we can get through a lot of stuff quite easily just to make sure that everything's pointing in the right direction to the right place. And then the effort was going to be around, or not necessarily the effort, but things which are, you know, not defined at the moment, which is the matching process and stuff, and cargo process. I mean, I've got it all, but I don't want to give it to you yet because you're going to get lost in it. I want to get the UI, and I want to get the vessels working. And I think so. There's enough to do where I can go as soon as we start. I can keep you, 150 hours or 200 hours or whatever it is. I think we can find.
Definitely.
Whether I don't know whether it's 200 or not, but I mean, I think I just don't. Once we start, I want to. Whether there's little gaps in between or not gaps in between, I think we can.
I love you.
There's enough where you can't. Well, I've done that. All right, fine. We'll then just go on and do the pipeline for the polygon. Okay, great, you finished that. All right, well, let's finish off on that. So I think we can jump. You might have to jump between things, but if you're comfortable across all of it, then I think there's enough to keep it constant. Once we start. So I've just got to get those things down initially to point you towards.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So this is just at the moment. This is you just getting familiar. You're learning. You're looking at this stuff, trying to get yourself. I'm making you think about all these things. I'm going to come back with you tomorrow. I'm going to start giving you a couple of tasks. I'm going to arrange the payment, and we're going to start clocking the hours or putting the hours against whatever's already been done, and start moving towards things.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Like, it really means me a lot, and I will do my best. Like all my work as much as fast as possible and as better as possible.
Of course, yeah, I know you'll do that. And so, and for me, I just want to see how much I can get done in 30 days because I've got all sorts of pressures on me, right? Money and all other sorts of stuff, and I'm trying to get some other money in I'm trying to get a constant income in so I can keep going on this. And I generally don't know how much I have to do, how much time I have to spend on this. But I look at it, and some days I think it's not much, and other days I think it's a lot.
Yeah, it's always like some days it will gonna be like a slow. Some days it will be very, very fast, and which makes the momentum, more like a very good. And right now, actually, I will try to, finish everything.
Yeah, this is as much of you, the more you get your head around it, right, then you start thinking about problems as well.
Yeah.
And me, I've had enough time, and I've thought about all the problems, and I genuinely do. I do have the solution for pretty much all of